So I think whiskey needs to be a community, and whiskey education also needs to be a community, not a competition. Now, here's what I mean by that. After we had created Whiskey Marketing School, we had been going for 5-6 years, I think. And we had gotten through what I felt were the biggest hurdles of the program and refining it and making sure it was something that was creating value and impacting lives. And I was really proud of what we had done. And then the next thing on my plate was, in the 5 years that we had been doing that, a bunch of other whiskey programs had popped up, and there were also some that predated us. And one of the ones that predated us was Moonshine University and their Stave and Thief program. Now, for 5 years at that point, I had been sending people to Moonshine U, including at the time, Deb at Crowded Barrel had gone to their distiller's course. And I had been sending students to the Stave and Thief program who I thought our program was not what they needed, but the Stave and Thief program was awesome. But I had yet to talk to any of those people. And as I thought about it, I thought, it would be amazing if the education whiskey community was an actual community instead of a whole bunch of random popped up organizations all seemingly fighting for the same shelf space. Because I don't think we are fighting for the same shelf space. And I think that was also what drove me to help create the Texas Whiskey Association, was the fact that we're a community. So I reached out to Colin. I sent him an email and said at Moonshine U and said, hey man, I'd love to talk. And he emailed back, hey, that sounds awesome. How about tomorrow? Or some version of that. And so we got on the phone, and I can't remember if it was the first thing I said. You can ask Colin, but it was one of the early things I said was, hey man, I have a whole bunch of people telling me that we're supposed to be enemies, but I can't figure out why, because I think you guys are awesome. And I send people to you all the time. And Colin said, us too, man. We send people to you guys all the time because you guys do a marketing, education, and training, and we don't do that. And I was like, yes, and I send people to you because we don't teach distillation, and we're not focused on Kentucky and Stave and Thief. And so the more we talked, the more we realized that we were simpatico and that we cared about the same things, which was education and people. And so those guys, Colin and Clay, came out and hung out on campus here, and we talked for days, and then we went out and worked with them. And the whole goal was, what are we doing? How do we get better? Where's whiskey education improved? And how do we work together to serve the community? And the answer was that we now hold their program here, the Stave and Thief program, not the Moonshine University courses, and we're friends. And I love that because that's exactly how it should be. And then the next person I reached out to was Ian at Edinburgh Whisky Academy in Scotland. And I had a similar conversation of like, you guys are doing stuff we're not doing. We would love to work with you. And now we're one of their approved course providers. Why? Why would I spend all of that energy instead of just trying to like carve out territory for Whiskey Marketing School, trying to build relationships with the other education industries and connect people? I'll tell you. But first, let's talk about this. This is Bardstown. This is a rye, but this, and I gotta say, I love Bardstown. I don't always prefer the whiskey depending on what they've done with it, not because it's bad, but because, they have done some things I'm like, that's okay. But I love who they are as a brand and as a product, and I love their creativity, and I love the soul of what's going on there, and I love that they have all these variations, and they're super nerds, but they've got whimsy, and I love that. So I'm not totally objective when it comes to Bardstown, because I'm kind of a fan of the company. But this is a collaboration from their collaboration series. And this one is with a cooperage, the West Virginia Great Barrel Company. And West Virginia, you can look them up. They're doing interesting things with what do they call infrared technology for toasting. And then they're doing super controlled charring and air drying and staves. It's high quality stuff. Bardstown took 6-year-old MGP and 12-year-old corn whiskey from Ontario. They don't say who. And then they filled these barrels from West Virginia, so a finish really, that is cherry wood barrels, toasted cherry wood barrels. Now, I don't know if you know this, but I've had some cherry aged product from Method and Madness and a couple other distilleries. It doesn't bring out cherry. It's not cherry flavoring. It adds a weird, in my experience, a weird kind of musty spice that's in the direction of dessert, but more wood forward than you would think. So first thing you just smell is the MGP rye. That's king in the nose. And then it's immediately surrounded with this sort of musty, damp woods chocolate, which is a weird combination, but I'm just gonna say, that's what it is. And then I think there's a little bit of a thinness to the nose that's probably coming from the corn whiskey. I'm guessing that corn whiskey is column distilled, but I have no idea if that's true. Yeah. It tastes a little thin and very bright and very much hard candies in the direction of, because psychosomatic, in the direction of cherries, but it's not cherries. But then there's not a long finish. It just sort of drops off. So the barrel impact is there, but bright and spicy, and the sweetness is there, but it's hard candy. It feels like a filled out Canadian rye. That's what it feels like. It feels like, even though it's corn, it's just so weird, but it feels like an Alberta 100% rye, like Alberta Premium or something like that. That just sort of got filled out a little bit to a richer sweetness and a little bit more barrel notes, but it's still fundamentally a kind of a thin, bright, shiny whiskey, even though there's real age on this. Yeah, very desserty, very candied. All right. For a rye, there's not a lot of botanicals, not a lot of funky notes, not a lot of anise or eucalyptus. It's just more the candied direction. A nice soft intro. I don't know how hard it is to get this because it's a specific collaborative one, but it's nice what they did with it. It's a nice blend. Okay, so education. I think education is powerful. It's one of the things I'm most passionate about. People who say those who can't teach have never tried to teach. Teaching is freaking hard. You find the limits of your knowledge when you try to teach what you know to someone else. That's when you learn how well you know what you think you know. Are there bad teachers? Sure, there's bad people in all industries. But fundamentally, this is why it's such a part of true education in any industry is training and teaching. Because until you train and teach, you don't realize what gaps are in your knowledge. I think when there's more education programs, we are all pushed to make better education programs, and I think that benefits education in general. When I see someone launch another education in whiskey industry into the world, I think the most recent one I saw was Virginia, as a part of the American Single Malt Commission, launched the American Single Malt Certification, and I saw that, and I was like, yes, yes! A program just designed at American Single Malt. That's amazing. We all benefit from more people knowing things about the stuff that we care about. No one truly knows the benefit or the impact of their education program. Maybe not even in their lifetime. We at Whiskey Marketing School are going on 8.5 years old now. I would argue that I think I know our impact and I'm proud of what we do. But I think it's going to be 20, 30, 40 years from now, maybe after I'm dead, if this thing is still going, when we find out our real value. And I think it's not determined by the school. I think it's determined by the student. The students are the marker of whether what you're doing is impactful and helpful, both to them and to the industry. And so I love seeing all these certifications and all these trainings and all these education programs. The more the merrier. Over the decades, some will sift and fall and new ones will arrive, and the ones that stick through will alter and change and grow, and that makes all of us better. So the real question on whiskey education isn't which one's real. The real question is, what is it you're trying to accomplish? And if that school makes what you're trying to accomplish easier and makes you better at it, then that's the program for you. And only you can answer that question. So cheers to you. I'm really glad you're here.